On this episode, we're talking about conflicting priorities, particularly in marriage. And welcome to TGI Monday. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about love. Now I know a few weeks ago, I can't remember what the subject was, but we were talking about how words can mean different things, and particularly how you can love different kind of things at different kind of levels. So I just wonder, at sort of spur of the moment, top of your head, what do you love? I really love Yorkshire puddings and chocolate and lions in the morning when I don't have to get up. Well, you know, you've got to have a balanced diet, Simon.
Cake in either hand.
Yeah, exactly. What do you love, Paul?
I love you, dear viewer.
Oh, that's so cringy.
I pinged.
Brilliant. That's so
That's
cringy.
extraordinary.
You've now got a fan base.
Dan, what do you love?
Well, obviously things like my family, but I've been loving my barbecue this summer. In fact, I've got 2 barbecues, and I'm on number 8 already since January.
Yeah, that's not bad, is it?
Yeah, because we only had about 2 sunny days.
But
so
It doesn't matter. I stick the garage door up and off I go.
You only live 10 miles away from me. That's quite impressive. Is it like a portal of sunniness around Charles Harcourt?
Yeah, no, rain or shine.
Rain or
When I
shine.
used the tripod barbecue, which is like a hanging barbecue, then I have to, obviously it has to be good weather because I don't want any rain. But when it's just with the weather, I just put up
I have no idea
put up
what
a
you're
Are you
talking
a barbecue
about now.
geek or something?
I am. I'm really.
Do you do like the
I'm a
deep
pit
south?
master.
I was going to say, do you do like the kind of digging and the kind of proper barbecue and a
Oh, I've
pit
done that. Camping.
thing?
I don't. No, I don't.
You don't do kind of deep south barbecue.
Oh, I use deep south sauces,
Yeah,
low,
but
low,
that's
and,
not the
low and
same.
slow smoking. Excuse me, yes it is.
Not the same.
Go to barbecuepitboys.com.
Zoe, what do you love?
At the moment, I love my gorgeous purple Dutch bike. I'm going out on that. And I really love picnics. If I can find an excuse to eat outside with the kids anywhere.
Brilliant.
Picnic barbecue, sorted, right.
Happy. Yeah, I'm happy if we're sitting somewhere with nice food that's not in
wasps.
town.
I know, I got covered in mosquito bites this weekend.
Okay, I like spring picnics.
Howell.
I love Iron Maiden, and I'm really excited that we're going to see Book of Souls tour next week after next, so that's going to be really good. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to go up there with Andrew.
Good. Simon, what do you love?
Well, a bit like Dan, I like burning stuff, but preferably inside a steam engine.
Oh, I see. Do you have the hat?
And little
No,
trays.
I don't yet.
I think we should get him the hat.
Very good. Okay, well, we all love all kinds of different things. Here's a question. This is a much more serious kind of question about what we love. And this is coming via email. And the question is, do you or should you love God or your spouse more? And how does that manifest itself in what you do? It's quite a complicated question, isn't it? Should you love God or your spouse more? And how does that show itself, who you love more? So I guess it's a question that for many people won't necessarily be a conflict, but there could certainly be situations where there is a real conflict and you're having to make choices about whether you do things that show your love to your spouse.
There can be a
God.
conflict. I remember
Yeah.
I gave this joke once before on a show sometime last year where it was on the Machine Gun Preacher movie, where he says, he comes home and he finds his wife has become a Christian. And he's having a beer with his friend about it, and he's kind of lamenting this fact. And his friend tries to console him, says, well, you know, better Jesus than the postman. And he says, I don't know, I could beat up the postman. And so, he generally felt threatened by the fact that she was going to church and now he wasn't the most important thing in her life anymore.
Yeah.
And he was trying to understand that. But actually, in Christianity, it's not about kind of one being above the other. One comes out of the other. And that's the difference. So we love, when Jesus says, love your neighbour as yourself, or love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and strength, and then love your neighbour as you love yourself, those 2 commandments, one comes out of the other. It's hard, it's actually, I find I love my wife more, the more that I love God, rather than the other way around. When I'm not loving God as much, I'm not actually being as loving towards my wife.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing is as well, it's a similar thing, I think, to when sometimes when somebody has, when you have a baby in a relationship, some people really struggle because they get jealous of the child because they think, oh, well, my wife now loves the child more than she loves me, or the other way around. You know, my husband loves the child more than he loves me, and they feel pushed out and things like that. So I think it's similar to that. And I think it's because it's a different type of love. So the way, if I love God the way I love my wife, that would be really creepy, wouldn't it? Let's be honest, that'd be super creepy. Like, I know there's some of those cheesy sort of
You'd be
evangelical
worshipping
hymns.
her and everything,
It'd
wouldn't
be
you?
really creepy. But I think it's to do with, I think it's just like those awful worship songs, like Jesus is my boyfriend, those sorts of ones. But I think it's, the way to understand it, the problem is the English language. Is we have the word love is for all different types of love, while in Greek and in most languages we have different words for different types of love. So I eru, in other words, I eros eru, my wife, while I agape, my God. So I love God in a very different way to the way in which I love my wife.
That's true. Although I think, you know, when we kind of mock those Jesus is my boyfriend songs, there is a big strand in the Bible which is Jesus is our bridegroom. And I think it's not quite as different as perhaps
You're not married,
you want to make out. Well, I'm not, no, but I one day hope to be married to my Lord. There we go. Okay,
You're not married, yeah.
Let's
like
move
that,
on. Zoe, what do you think? Are there situations, so Dan has said one flows out of the other. Could there be situations where that's not quite as straightforward as that sounds, or where there might end up being conflicts?
Yeah, loads, because people aren't perfect. And so all relationships are on shifting sand. And so what you put in, and I totally agree with you, Dan, actually, I couldn't really separate the two. But then there are situations where I think when you mentioned that there's conflict on some of that stuff, which can get really complicated. And what I would say, and what I do say to people who are going through, quite often it's one of the partners is a Christian and the other one isn't. And that is often a source of real stress for people. And actually, the doctrinal stuff is something to put to one side, and I think particularly when you become a Christian early, you're so anxious about doing it wrong. But actually it's about relationships. So being attentive to what makes you alive and where you feel secure and where there is love, and building that into the way you talk to your husband or wife, in the way you're dealing with your relationship. Because actually it's about finding that shared, you know, there isn't that sort of perceived threat, because it is a perceived threat, isn't it? And actually the way we get super anxious about our faith, you know, I didn't want to do anything until God had instructed me when I was first Christian. How many glasses of wine am I allowed? Or, you know, every single detail, actually. And that can really do the opposite of what love is supposed to do, which is free us.
Well, that's very similar though to when you have a baby. You want to do it right for the baby, don't you? And you want to bring the baby up in that sort of way, and you're very, very anxious about it. And that's why a lot of couples do struggle in a similar way, where one of the couple is completely devoted, and it's natural then to feel jealous and excluded and so on. And I think if we understand it in that way, it can be quite helpful, because I think the thing is with all this stuff, God wants us, as Dan says, to love each other and for his love to overflow. But the other thing is as well, is that it would be really wrong for me as a husband to say to my wife, you must come to church and you must believe this, and I'm going to control you now to make sure you don't do those things. In the same way, I think it's the same the other way around. And I always remember my mother's friend who was told by her husband that she could get married in church, but she was never to go there again. And my mother said, that's wrong, that is, because you shouldn't tell people like that if you love them. And I think that's something that's
it is. So, I mean,
said.
I can imagine a sort of more contemporary, perhaps, way of putting that might be one person saying, well, Sunday is the family day, and that's when we spend time together, and, you know, that's important. And the other person saying, well, it is a family day, but also it's important to me that I spend time at church. But what would you say to someone faced with that sort of situation?
I've been there.
Right.
I've been in that situation. When I first acted on the calling to the priesthood, I was a Roman Catholic.
Okay.
With a girlfriend. So
Gosh.
it was the local parish priest saying, ditch the girl.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, my first act of following a loving God is to tell someone I love, get lost. It didn't add up. What I really like is the bit of scripture in, I think it's 1 John, where there is love, there is God. So focus on the love. Love conquers all. And then certain lyrics of a certain song, if you love somebody, set them free, rather than control them whether they should or shouldn't go to church or believe something or other.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, you know, obviously every relationship will be different, and there'll be different sort of crunch points where this sort of thing kicks in. I think it's important, isn't it, if you're the Christian in that relationship, or if you're both Christians in that relationship, that you are not the one seeking to kind of set down the law or to control somebody else, but wanting to be loving and gracious.
But likewise, if you're being railroaded in you know, by your unbelieving spouse, who doesn't want you to do certain things that actually you really do feel like you need to do as a Christian, like be with other Christians from time to time, or if they throw a Bible out of your house or something like that, then you've got a problem, and you have to start looking at ways of dealing with that.
But that problem isn't to do with God, that's to do with
them.
with the relationship.
Yeah.
I think that what I used to do when my wife was an atheist on a Sunday and things, I used to make sure I went to the early morning service, right? So I could say, right, okay, on Sunday I'll be done with that by 9:30, right?
Yeah.
And then, or 10:30, and then I'll do that. So
Exactly.
if I went to say my prayers, I would make sure I did it at a convenient time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, she'd say, it's time for tea now. Sorry, go say my prayers. You know, it was, you've got to be sensitive.
Being generous and kind.
generous and kind on both sides.
In the way that you do that very quickly,
And we
Zoe.
need to be careful as churches that we don't make people feel that if they're not in the main Sunday service, they're not a proper Christian.
Yes.
That's about setting people free too.
Yes, exactly. Or if they're not able to come to every midweek thing, that's okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I hope that's helped a little bit. If you're in that sort of situation or something similar and you want to chat more, please do get in touch.
So thanks for watching. Zoe's giggling in the background.
I'm really sorry.
Ask it. We love hearing from you, and almost had it.
We love hearing
Almost.
them.
Yeah, well, we love hearing ourselves. We love your questions because we love hearing ourselves. So thanks for watching. Please keep asking us your questions. We love getting them. And remember to like us on Facebook and share us on your social media channels.